Europeans want Teslas, but they don't want the mines that produce the metals in their backyard, and that's extremely hypocritical. The common perception is we don't have any resources in Europe.
But it's wrong.
We want to know that the metals that go into the wind turbine, that it is produced in a good way.
So we want ethical mining, basically.
For me, responsible and ethical are quite close.
I would very much support the European self-sufficiency of metals. If you don't have metals, there's no green transition.
Dr. Peter Tom Jones is on his way to the north of Sweden, more specifically to one of the largest mines in Europe. Jones is the director of the KU Leuven Institute for Sustainable Metals and Minerals. In Belgium, he is also a well-known climate activist and author of many books.
Klimaatwetenschappers waarschuwen ons al geruime tijd voor het feit dat we recht op een ijsberg afvaren als we niet drastisch van koers veranderen.
Onze mondiale ecologische voetafdruk vandaag 50% groter is dan het draagvlak van de aarde. Dat kan natuurlijk niet ongestraft verder gaan. We need to build a better future and we need to start right now. Ik dank u voor de aandacht en ik hoop dat u allemaal heel hard meezingt dat men wie het heeft gehoord.
In Peter Tom Jones's ideology, mining was regarded as bad for our planet. But in recent years, he has gradually changed his mind.
Yeah, so I must admit, I have changed my mind as regards mining. To make the transition to climate neutrality, we need the massive rollout of electric vehicles, wind turbines, batteries. This is only possible if we have sufficient quantities of lithium, nickel, cobalt, rare earths. And to provide these metals, we really need more mines. But obviously, we need to do it in a more responsible way. We need responsible mining.
To meet the Paris Climate Agreement goals, the demand for lithium in 2040 will increase 42 times compared to 2020, for cobalt 21 times, and for nickel 19 times higher. For all these energy transition metals, Europe is almost 100% reliable on imports from mines outside Europe. This dependency makes us vulnerable. And the exploding energy and metal prices, due to the Ukraine-Russian conflict, makes this transition to more autonomy even more urgent.
So we need more mining of energy transition metals in Europe. And yet, mining has such a bad reputation. In countries like China, Congo, many places in Latin America, mining is associated with dire social conflict, environmental pollution, child labor. So how is it possible that the Financial Times recently established this Swedish company as a climate leader? What is going on? Let's try to find out today. Hello.
Hello, Peter.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Peter Tom Jones has a meeting with Anders Sand, the R&D manager of the Swedish mining company Boliden. They are visiting the Aitik mine, Europe's largest open-pit copper mine. It soon becomes clear why this mining company has become a climate leader, according to the Financial Times.
Okay, so here you see one of our electrified trucks, and you see it by the pantograph at the front end.
And is this fully electric?
It also has a diesel engine, so you can switch between diesel and electric. But when you go up the hill, you will have a trolley lane that it will follow along, and then it will be electrified on the way up.
Electric is great, of course, but is it green electricity you're putting in?
Yes, it is here in the north, because here we would have hydropower and wind power. So we have green energy in the north.
It is an impressive sight. When the electrification of the whole fleet is completed, Boliden will save up to 30 million litres of diesel a year. And this is only one of the steps this mining company makes to become climate neutral by 2050.
So what makes this mine so different from all the other mines in the rest of the world?
I think actually when you come and have a look here, you would feel that it is a bit like any other mine. But very much the devil is in the details, I would say. We work, for instance, a lot with the health and safety of the workers. To be here is just as safe as to be a shopkeeper in Sweden or to be a taxi driver, while elsewhere it's one of the most dangerous professions. Due to the very low grade that we are mining here, we have to work a lot with the production efficiency in all part of the production.
But does that then mean that you need more chemicals to recover the metals?
Actually, here we use less reagents than elsewhere, and also we work a lot with finding alternative reagents with less environmental impact, for instance being biodegradable and so on.
But still, environmentalists will say you're creating a huge scar in nature. What are you going to do there?
So we of course, we have an impact from the operations, but we also work with the biodiversity projects where we increase the biodiversity elsewhere to compensate for the loss of biodiversity here at the mine site. So actually to have a net positive impact.
The immense waste production is still the Achilles heel of the mining industry. This copper mine produces up to 40 million tons of tailings every year. This waste is stored in a huge tailing pond for decades. If responsible mining is to become the new paradigm, it is essential to tackle this problem as well.
Acid mine drainage is the biggest environmental problem for all sulfidic mining sites in the world. Here, they have solved the problem by separating the high sulfur fraction from the low sulfur fraction, and for both tailing fractions, they are finding resource recovery opportunities. And that is a huge step towards lowering the overall environmental footprint of this site, and that's great news.
Together with the European Consortium of Research Institutes, universities, companies and one NGO, a pilot plant was developed to tackle this waste problem. Here, the tailings aren't considered as waste, but as a source for new materials.
So, Mohammed, what have you developed here?
Yes, here, Peter, it's the process that we have built for bioleaching of the mining residues for recovery of cobalt, nickel, copper and zinc.
Say bioleaching, so how does that work?
Bioleaching is the process where we, with the help of the bacteria, we provide very, I would say, strong conditions in which the ore can be broken down and the metals within can be extracted.
And how easy is it to upscale it to industrial level?
I wouldn't say it's very easy, but it is doable. It has been around this technology for a while, and it would be one of the few ones that will be used for recovery of metals from mining residues.
So what do you do with the solid residues after completion of the bioleaching process?
After the bioleaching process, Peter, there are solid residues. The goal is to produce construction material out of them.
In that case, you would move towards zero waste approach.
We would be very close to that, yes.
That would be great.
This multi-metal zero-waste approach is the way to go, and the amount of metals in one tailing pond is still considerable.
Okay, what do we see here?
Yes, what you see here, Peter, is the product that we have produced from our pilot campaigns. Here is copper sulfide, here is zinc sulfide, and here is cobalt and nickel sulfide, which is necessary for fabrication of the battery material for electrical vehicles.
And have you got any idea about the overall resource potential for Europe?
Yes, I have calculated for one of our mines, the tailings that we have in one of our mines, that it would be enough amount of cobalt for around 2 million cars.
2 million cars just for one mine?
Exactly,
wow.
From the residues of one of our mines.
That's already impressive.
Yes. It is something.
And this is all live data?
Yes, it is.
So these are continuously upgraded?
Yep, exactly.
This multi-metal mining approach is something which is in the DNA of Boliden. This Swedish mining company owns several highly efficient mines. This efficiency is also part of our new paradigm of responsible mining.
Wow, thank you, Anders. This is really vanguard European mining. It's impressive to see which low-grade quality ores can be processed here. Wow, this is really impressive. They can treat ore with a grade quality of 0.2%, 10 times lower than typical grades elsewhere in the world. And not only is the metal recovered, but it's also about multi-metal mining. You see, for example, here, Kevitsa, not only nickel as primary metal is recovered, but also copper, gold, platinum and cobalt are being recovered from this operation. And more, these are also conflict metals. For example, platinum and nickel are being produced in Russia. They control a large part of the supply chain. So it's great to see that Europe is also capable of producing these metals in our own boundaries and to become less dependent on the rest of the world.
More responsible mining in Europe. Is this possible? the last 10 years not a single new mine has opened in Europe. In the city of Mechelen in Belgium, Peter Tom Jones has a meeting with geologist Gwen Guezenek of BRGM, the French Geological Survey. Peter Tom Jones wants to debunk the widely held belief that Europe, unlike China and Russia, has no energy transition metals in its bedrock.
The common perception is we don't have any resources in Europe.
But it's wrong.
It's wrong.
Yeah, we have metals, but a lot of people don't want to know that we have these metals in Europe.
So give us a couple of examples in terms of geological potential. Cobalt, lithium, rare earths. What do we have in Europe?
Well, for example, for rare earth element, we have a nice deposit in the northern of Europe, in Scandinavia. We have also lithium deposit in this part of Europe, but we can find lithium also in Portugal, in France. Cobalt is also quite common in different deposits. So yes, we have metals in Europe.
Assuming we would mine all of these metals, how far do we get in terms of meeting the European needs?
Well, it depends on the metal. For example, for the rare earth element, we could cover at least most of the needs in Europe with one deposit. But for lithium and cobalt, it's different. We have these metals and we can contribute to cover the demand, but we will not be able to cover all the demand. And also it will depend on our ability to develop technology to recover these metals. So it's also a technological challenge.
Thank you, Gwen. You've really reassured my beliefs, and I'm just convinced now we really need to grasp this opportunity. Thank you. Environmental activists will claim that we need to stop opening new mines and we just need to focus on more and better recycling. But the numbers simply don't add up. The International Energy Agency has calculated that if we would recycle all batteries by 2040, that merely would provide 10% of the needs of new copper, cobalt, nickel for the batteries of 2040. So it's clear that primary mining will be needed next to recycling.
An important argument to convince Europe to open new mines for energy transition metals is the near-zero waste approach. The tailings of the mining industry can serve as a cement replacement. We are witnessing one of the first tests on an industrial scale.
So today is a very special day. Tell us why.
Yeah, absolutely. Today we're going to use these mining waste, these tailings, at industrial scale for the first time to make ready-mix concrete, which is nice and durable.
And how far can you go in terms of replacing ordinary Portland cement?
So it strongly depends on the waste and the tailing we get. Today it's going to be 20%, but for more reactive tailings we can go up to 50–60% of cement replacement, basically.
And in terms of the total environmental footprint and CO2 footprint reduction, what does that mean?
So considering the CO2 footprint of concrete, you basically are related to the cement. So if you can replace 20% of the cement netto, you can also reduce 20% of the CO2 footprint of the concrete.
And that you can extrapolate to the entire cement production in Europe?
Yeah, for the ready-mix concrete, there's really, let's say, millions of cubic meters produced every year. So that also translates into millions of potential tons CO2 that could be reduced.
Okay, sounds great. Good luck with your tests.
Thank you.
The construction industry is responsible for about 7% of all CO2 emissions worldwide. With the new cement, this footprint can be significantly reduced. And the quality of this eco-friendly concrete is equal or even better.
This is what they call more really outdoor concrete.
Outdoor concrete.
Where you have, let's say, exposure to freeze thaw, moist, but not, let's say, what they call road-based. That is more hard, where there are de-icing salts.
You're not going to use it in a house to start with.
You could. It's above the quality of a house even.
It's above the quality.
Yeah. You have different levels from 0 to 4, and we're at level 3, so the one but highest level of concrete.
But still, it's not easy to bring these new eco-friendly building products to the market. The building sector is pretty conservative, and then there is the European legislation.
And if you can name one key barrier which is stopping them, what would that be at the moment?
Well, apart from some technical things, but these are usually more easily solved, it's mainly also the standards, which are very conservative and performance-based at the moment.
What do you mean with performance-based?
Well, performance-based is that actually current standards really focus a lot on the content of a material, so that there is a certain amount of cement there, so it's more what the material is instead of focusing on what it should be able to do, so the performance in view of specific applications. And so it should be more important that it can do what it should do regardless of the origin of it.
So if that would come to fruition, how do you see the landscape developing?
Well, I think both the mining sector and the construction industry are sectors that, well, use or produce large amounts of materials, and these can actually form a nice symbiosis where they come together, also geographically, I think, in certain locations, where they can really form close linkages that can benefit both.
It seems to look quite good.
It's a beautiful piece of concrete. On this sunny day, making such a nice, smooth, shiny cast. I'm really happy about it.
Perfect viscosity, I saw. Very easy to flow.
Excellent. The guys don't need to work too hard, don't need to sweat too much.
It's too hot to work too hard anyway.
So we designed the concrete for this hot weather and it seems to work out brilliant.
So technically, responsible mining in Europe is perfectly feasible. We can produce an autonomous streams of critical metals and we can convert the mining waste into low-carbon construction materials. So why on earth is it so difficult to convert our deposits into functioning open mines? I want to know what the European Commission has to think about this.
Good afternoon. Very happy to be here.
Maria Nieberg is working for the European Commission, more specifically in the Department for Internal Market and Industry. She is giving a lecture at an international symposium on the recycling of mining waste.
We always get the impression that European city dwellers tend to like Tesla cars, but they don't want the mines in their backyard to produce the metals for those cars. So in a way, we believe that's very hypocritical.
But I think hypocritical, that is a strong word to use. I would say that it is about simply not knowing what mining is about. Perhaps never having seen a modern mine of today.
Mining is unknown and therefore unloved. Nieberg makes the comparison with the meat industry.
When you buy your meat, I want to know that what I buy is produced in a okay way.
An ethical way.
In an ethical way. This also stretches into other areas of our way of life and the way we consume. We want to know that the metals that go into the wind turbine that is placed in my region, that it is produced in a good way.
So we want ethical mining, basically. Not responsible mining, we need ethical mining.
Yes, well, for me, responsible and ethical are quite close.
It's a bit of a surprise, but it turns out that the European Commission's position is not so far from Peter Tom Jones's view after all.
From our political leaders, they have spoken to the public in the recent months, saying that is it really morally responsible to say that we don't want the mines here, but it is okay to source it from the outside.
So finally, I would like to ask you to make one prediction for the next 10 years. How many new energy transition metal mines do you think will start up in Europe?
The aim of the raw materials policy, it is not about maximizing the number of mines. It is to make sure that the conditions are such that the mining industry, which is going through the transition itself, is sustainable and competitive, because any industry needs to be financially viable at the end of the day. So we can be as sustainable as we want if we don't have a business that works.
The time is now. The International Energy Agency recently pointed out that in order to meet the 2030 climate goals, we need 50 new lithium mines, 60 new nickel mines, and 17 new cobalt mines worldwide. But still, opening new mines seems to be so difficult, especially in Europe. Nobody wants a mine in his or her backyard. Maybe we can learn something from Sweden and Finland.
Yet here in your backyard in North Scandinavia, we have this mine and people seem to be in favor. Why is that?
I think actually it is because we are not really a fly-in, fly-out operation. We have a very deep commitment in the society where we're acting. We're hiring local people. We work with gender and ethnic balance.
So may I ask you about your current gender balance?
So here at this site, it is actually not far from 50-50. And if you take the truck drivers, for instance, then more than 50% are female.
Okay, so you are gender responsible and socially responsible. What about your environmental responsibility? Because I still see this 500-meter deep pits in the ground. Will you give that back to nature?
So at the end of life of the mine, this hole would actually fill up with water and become the deepest lake in Sweden. You could go fishing or swimming here in the future.
The problem is I can't swim.
I will teach you.
Okay, thank you.